In a modest apartment in Chicago, Sarah Thompson knelt before a flickering candle, her hands trembling as she clutched a worn rosary. The room was dark, lit only by the candle's glow and the faint shimmer of a streetlight filtering through the window. It was past midnight, and the city was hushed, but inside Sarah's heart, a storm was raging. Her husband, Michael, had lost his job that morning. Their savings were dwindling, and the weight of unpaid bills pressed against her chest like a boulder. But tonight, something else stirred within her, a feeling she couldn't name, a pull toward something greater. It was as if an invisible hand had guided her to this moment, to this prayer, to this candle. Sarah wasn't alone in her struggles. Across the United States, thousands faced similar challenges: economic uncertainty, fractured families, and a creeping sense of despair. Yet, in the quiet of her apartment, Sarah felt a spark of hope, a whisper that she wasn't abandoned. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to uncover 3 invisible signs, marks of heaven, that Pope Francis had spoken of, signs that could transform her life and the lives of those around her. The story began a week earlier at a bustling parish church in downtown Chicago. Sarah had attended Mass out of habit, her mind distracted by worries. The priest, Father James, a lean man with a voice that blended gentleness and fervor, had preached about a teaching from Pope Francis. There are people, he said, who carry the light of heaven without even knowing it. They face the same trials as everyone else, yet they move through life with a grace that defies explanation. Their problems seem to resolve in ways that seem impossible. They never lack what they need. And a deep peace follows them, even in chaos. Sarah listened, her heart stirring. She thought of her grandmother, Grandma Grace, who had passed away 3 years ago. Grace had been such a person, always calm, always praying, always finding a way to provide for the family, even when times were tough. Could Sarah carry that same light? Father James's words echoed in her mind. These are not coincidences. They are signs, 3 invisible marks that Pope Francis has revealed. If you're here today, it's because the Holy Spirit has led you to discover them. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She scrolled through her phone, searching for more about these signs. A video caught her eye, titled 3 Signs You've Been Touched by Heaven. The thumbnail showed a serene image of Pope Francis, his eyes kind yet piercing. She hit play, and a warm voice filled the room, speaking directly to her soul. You might already carry one of these signs without realizing it. They're not found in books or rituals. They're hidden treasures, revealed through faith. The video spoke of a shepherd, a humble man who bore the pain of humanity's sins, whose prayers brought healing, whose presence drove out darkness. It was Pope Francis, the narrator said, whose life and teachings pointed to these 3 signs: a family that prays, health to fulfill a mission, and faith that endures silence. Sarah felt a shiver. She thought of her family, her daughter, Emily, who was struggling at school, her husband, Michael, who was losing hope, and her own faltering faith. Could these signs be in her life, unnoticed? The next morning, Sarah returned to the parish, determined to learn more. Father James welcomed her into his small office, cluttered with books and religious icons. Sarah, he said, the signs Pope Francis speaks of aren't miracles in the sky. They're quiet, like seeds planted in your soul. The first sign is a family that loves and prays for you. Do you have such a family? Sarah hesitated. Her family was fractured. Michael was distant, consumed by his worries. Emily was rebellious, spending hours on her phone. But then she remembered Grandma Grace's prayer journal, found after her death. Every page mentioned Sarah's name, Emily's, Michael's. Grace had prayed for them daily, even when Sarah was too busy to notice. My grandmother, Sarah said softly. She prayed for us. Always. Father James smiled. That's the first sign. Those prayers are a shield, protecting you even now. Grace's love is still with you, stronger than death. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. But you must nurture this sign. Pray for your family, Sarah. Light a candle each night and offer a Hail Mary for Michael and Emily. It's not just words, it's a bridge to heaven. Sarah left the church with a sense of purpose. That night, she began her new ritual. She lit a candle and prayed, her voice shaky at first. Hail Mary, full of grace. As she spoke, she felt a warmth, as if Grace's spirit stood beside her. For the first time in months, she slept peacefully. But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, Michael came home with the news of his job loss. The family's fragile stability crumbled. Emily stormed off to her room, slamming the door. Sarah felt the old despair creeping back. She wanted to give up, to stop praying, to let the darkness win. But something stopped her, a memory of Father James's words, "The enemy wants you to believe you're alone. But you're not. The signs are there." Determined, Sarah returned to the video. The narrator's voice was soothing yet urgent. "The second sign is health, not a perfect body, but the strength to fulfill your mission. If you can pray, if you can love, if you can take one step forward, you have this sign." Sarah thought of her exhaustion, her stress, her aching joints from long hours at the bakery where she worked. Yet she was still here, still fighting for her family. Was that enough? She decided to test the teaching. The next day, instead of complaining about her fatigue, she offered it to God. "Lord," she whispered as she kneaded dough, "I give you this pain for Emily. Help her find her way." It was a small act, but it shifted something inside her. She felt lighter, as if the weight of her worries had been shared. That evening, Emily surprised her. "Mom," she said, hesitating, "I found this old notebook in the basement. It's Grandma's. She wrote about you." Emily handed her Grace's prayer journal, open to a page that read, *for Sarah, my heart, may she know she is never alone. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. It was as if Grace was speaking to her, through time, through Emily. Sarah realized the signs weren't just ideas, they were alive, woven into her life. But she needed guidance to understand the third sign, the most mysterious one, faith that endures silence. She returned to Father James, who shared a story about Pope Francis. When he was a young priest, James said, he faced moments of doubt when God seemed silent. But he kept praying, kept serving, kept believing. That's the faith that moves mountains. James gave Sarah a challenge: for 7 days, pray Psalm 91 each morning. Speak it aloud, even if you feel nothing. Trust that God hears you. Sarah agreed, though she was skeptical. The next morning, she opened her Bible and read, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." The words felt heavy, like a promise she wasn't sure she could claim. But she spoke them, her voice growing stronger with each verse. As the days passed, Sarah noticed subtle changes. Michael began talking to her again, sharing his fears instead of hiding them. Emily started helping with chores, her attitude softening. The bakery gave Sarah an extra shift, easing their financial strain. These weren't miracles in the dramatic sense, but they were signs, small, quiet proofs that heaven was at work. On the 7th day, Sarah sat in her apartment, the candle burning brighter than ever. She felt a presence, not just Grace's, but something deeper, as if Pope Francis himself was interceding for her. She remembered the video's call to action: leave a comment, Francis, open my eyes to see your signs. She opened her phone, found the video, and typed the words, her fingers trembling. It was more than a comment, it was a surrender, a step toward a new life. Sarah didn't know what lay ahead, but she felt ready. The signs were real, and they were hers. She had a family, however imperfect, that loved her. She had strength, however small, to keep going. And she had faith, however fragile, to trust in God's silence. But this was only the beginning. The video had promised more, a way to multiply these blessings, to protect her home, to embrace a mission. Sarah was about to discover that her journey was not just about carrying signs, but about wielding them as weapons in a spiritual battle she was only starting to understand. Sarah Thompson sat at her kitchen table, the morning light filtering through a cracked window blind. Her Bible lay open to Psalm 91, the page now creased from daily use. The past week had changed her. The three signs Pope Francis had spoken of, a family that prays, health to fulfill a mission, and faith that endures silence, were no longer abstract ideas. They were threads woven into her life, pulling her toward a purpose she was only beginning to grasp. But as she traced the words of the psalm, a new challenge loomed. The signs were hers, but how could she use them to protect her family from the growing storm around them? The financial strain from Michael's job loss had worsened. The landlord had left a voicemail, his tone polite but firm, reminding them of overdue rent. Emily, their teenage daughter, was slipping further into defiance, her grades dropping as she spent more time with a crowd Sarah didn't trust. Yet, amidst the chaos, Sarah felt a quiet strength. The nightly ritual of lighting a candle and praying a Hail Mary for her family, inspired by Father James and the teachings of Pope Francis, had anchored her. Grandma Grace's prayer journal, rediscovered by Emily, sat on the table, a tangible reminder of the first sign, a family that loves and prays. Sarah's phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a notification from the With Jesus Everyday YouTube channel, the same one that had introduced her to the three signs. A new video had just been uploaded, titled How to Wield Heaven's Signs. She hesitated, then pressed play. The familiar warm voice filled the kitchen. You've recognized the signs, but knowing them is only the beginning. Pope Francis teaches us that every blessing comes with a responsibility. To protect your home, to multiply grace, you must turn these signs into action. Today, we'll show you how. The video spoke of sacrifice, not grand gestures, but small, intentional offerings that transform pain into power. It recounted a story about Pope Francis during his time as a priest in Argentina. A woman had come to him, her husband gravely ill, her faith crumbling. Francis prayed with her, asking her to offer her fear as a sacrifice to God. Days later, the husband recovered, and the woman's faith was renewed. Sacrifice, the narrator said, is the shield that guards the signs. It's the second step in your journey. Sarah felt a spark of recognition. Her offering of fatigue at the bakery had already brought small changes, Michael's openness, Emily's softened attitude. Could sacrifice be the key to strengthening the second sign, her health to fulfill her mission? She grabbed a notepad and wrote down the video's challenge, *for 7 days, offer a daily sacrifice. It could be a moment of discomfort, a kind act, or a fast from something you enjoy. Dedicated to your family's protection, *. That morning, Sarah decided to start small. Instead of her usual coffee, she drank water, whispering, "Lord, I offer this for Michael's hope." It felt trivial, but as she worked her shift at the bakery, her hands steady despite the ache in her joints, she sensed a purpose in the discomfort. She wasn't just kneading dough, she was forging a shield for her family. At the bakery, Sarah's co-worker, Rosa, noticed her focus. Rosa, a single mother with a sharp wit and a skeptical streak, wasn't religious but respected Sarah's faith. "You seem different," Rosa said, wiping flour from her hands. "Calmer, even with everything going on. What's your secret?" Sarah hesitated, then shared the story of the signs and her new practice of sacrifice. Rosa raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a lot of work. Does it actually help?" Sarah smiled, unsure how to explain the warmth she felt each night by the candle. "It's not magic. It's trust. I'm trying to believe there's more to life than what I can see." Rosa shrugged but didn't press further. Sarah sensed an opening, a chance to share the signs with someone outside her faith, but she let it pass for now, focusing on her work. That evening, Michael came home with a lead on a job, a temporary gig at a warehouse. It wasn't much, but it was something. Over dinner, he spoke more than he had in weeks, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. Emily, usually glued to her phone, joined the conversation, mentioning a school project she was actually excited about. Sarah's heart lifted. The sacrifices, the prayers, they were working, not in grand miracles but in quiet shifts that felt like miracles nonetheless. Encouraged, Sarah returned to Father James at the parish. The priest's office smelled of incense and old books, a comforting contrast to the chaos of her life. "You're growing," James said, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "The signs are alive in you, But the second sign, health, isn't just about your body. It's about offering what you have, however small, to God. Pope Francis once said that every pain, when given in love, becomes a staircase to heaven. James handed her a small booklet, The Wisdom of Francis, filled with quotes from the Pope. One caught her eye, *, do not fear your limitations. Offer them, and God will make them enough. * Sarah thought of her aching joints, her exhaustion, her fear for Emily's future. Could these be offerings, not burdens? James gave her a new challenge. Each day, choose one struggle and dedicate it to someone you love. Speak it aloud. Let it become a prayer. The next day, Sarah woke with a headache, a common side effect of her long shifts. Instead of reaching for aspirin, she sat by her candle and said, "Lord, I offer this pain for Emily's safety." The headache didn't vanish, but her resolve strengthened. She felt as if she were building something invisible, a fortress around her daughter. At work, she pushed through the discomfort, her hand steady as she shaped loaves of bread. That afternoon, Emily came home with a story that stopped Sarah's heart. "Mom, I was supposed to go with some friends after school, but I got a weird feeling and stayed at the library instead. Later, I heard those kids got caught sneaking out to some sketchy place." Sarah's breath caught. Was it coincidence, or had her sacrifice shielded Emily? She pulled her daughter into a hug, whispering thanks to God and Pope Francis. The week progressed, each day bringing new sacrifices. Sarah skipped her favorite TV show to call her estranged sister, Laura, offering the time for their reconciliation. She walked to work instead of taking the bus, dedicating the effort to Michael's job search. Each act felt like a brick in a spiritual wall, fortifying her family against the pressures threatening to break them. On the sixth day, Sarah faced a test. Rosa, at the bakery, shared that her son, Carlos, was struggling with bullying at school. "I don't know what to do," Rosa admitted, her usual bravado gone. Sarah saw an opportunity to extend the signs beyond her family. "Can I pray for him?" she asked. Rosa looked surprised but nodded. That night, Sarah lit her candle and prayed a Hail Mary for Carlos, offering her worry for Rosa as a sacrifice. It was her first time praying for someone outside her circle, and it felt like stepping into a larger mission. The next morning, Rosa pulled Sarah aside. "Carlos came home yesterday and said some kids stood up for him. First time in weeks he smiled. I don't know if it's your prayers, but thanks." Sarah's heart swelled. The signs weren't just for her, they could touch others, too. She shared the With Jesus Everyday video with Rosa, encouraging her to watch it. "It's not about religion," Sarah said. "It's about hope." On the seventh day, Sarah sat with her family at the kitchen table, a rare moment of togetherness. Michael had started the warehouse job, and Emily was working on her school project with newfound enthusiasm. Sarah opened Grandma Grace's journal and read aloud a prayer Grace had written, *, "May my family know the strength of God's love, even in their darkest hours." The words felt like a promise fulfilled. As the candle flickered, Sarah opened her phone and returned to the With Jesus Everyday channel. She typed a new comment, *Francis, thank you for showing me the power of sacrifice. The act felt like a vow, a commitment to keep going. The video had hinted at a third step, using faith to unlock the sign's full potential. Sarah sensed that the final sign, faith that endures silence, would demand more than sacrifice. It would require her to trust when answers didn't come, to believe when hope seemed lost. That night, as she prayed Psalm 91, Sarah felt a shift. The words weren't just a ritual, they were a weapon, a light piercing the darkness. She thought of Pope Francis, a man who had faced doubt yet never wavered. If he could endure silence, so could she. But a new question gnawed at her: what was the mission these signs were preparing her for? The video had spoken of a spiritual battle, and Sarah was beginning to feel its weight. Her family was stronger, but challenges remained: Emily's friends, Michael's uncertain job, her own fears. The signs were shields, but could they also be swords? Sarah Thompson stood in the dimly lit parish hall, the hum of conversation swirling around her. The room was packed with parishioners gathered for a Saturday evening prayer vigil, a response to recent tensions in their Chicago neighborhood, rising crime, economic struggles, and a sense of division that seemed to seep into every corner of the community. Sarah clutched her rosary, its beads worn smooth from weeks of fervent prayer. The three signs Pope Francis had revealed, a family that prays, health to fulfill a mission, and faith that endures silence, had become her lifeline. But tonight, she faced a new test. Could her faith hold strong when God's voice felt distant, when the world seemed to drown out the whispers of heaven? The past week had been a whirlwind. Sarah's sacrifices, small acts like foregoing coffee, walking to work, or praying for Rosa's son, had strengthened her family's fragile unity. Michael's temporary warehouse job brought a sliver of financial relief, and Emily's attitude had softened, her school project sparking a newfound focus. Rosa, Sarah's skeptical co-worker, had even started asking questions about faith after her son Carlos's unexpected reprieve from bullying. The With Jesus Everyday YouTube channel had become Sarah's guide, its videos offering practical steps to wield the signs. Yet, as she stood in the vigil, a gnawing doubt crept in. The second sign, her health to fulfill her mission, was clear in her sacrifices. But the third sign, faith that endures silence, was elusive, a flame that flickered in the face of life's relentless storms. The vigil began with Father James at the front, his voice steady as he read from Psalm 91, *, "You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day." The words, now familiar to Sarah from her morning recitations, felt heavier tonight, as if they were meant to brace her for something unseen. James spoke of Pope Francis, recounting a moment from the Pope's early priesthood when he faced a spiritual desert. Francis felt God's silence, James said, but he chose to pray, to serve, to trust. That choice turned silence into a crucible, forging a faith that could move mountains. Tonight, we're called to do the same. Sarah's heart stirred, but her mind raced. The neighborhood's troubles mirrored her own: fear, uncertainty, division. Emily had mentioned a fight at school, sparked by rumors and mistrust among students. Michael's job was temporary, and the landlord's patience was wearing thin. Sarah's sacrifices had brought small victories, but the bigger battles loomed. Was her faith strong enough to endure this silence, to trust when answers didn't come? As the vigil continued, Sarah noticed Rosa slip into the back of the hall, her face tense. It was Rosa's first time at a church event, a bold step for someone who'd always dismissed religion as not her thing. Sarah waved her over, and Rosa sat beside her, whispering, "Carlos begged me to come. Said he felt safe after your prayers." Sarah smiled, touched by the boy's trust, but her thoughts were interrupted by a new speaker, a woman named Maria, a parish volunteer who ran a youth outreach program. Maria shared a story that hushed the room. "Last year," she said, "I was ready to quit. The kids were angry, the funding was gone, and I felt God had forgotten us. Then I heard about Pope Francis's teaching on faith in silence. He said that when God seems absent, that's when he's closest, shaping us for a greater purpose. I kept praying, even when I felt nothing. One day, a donor appeared out of nowhere, and the program was saved." Maria's eyes shone with conviction. Faith isn't about feeling God. It's about choosing Him, even in the dark. The words hit Sarah like a spark. She thought of her own prayers, spoken in the quiet of her apartment, often met with silence. Had she been waiting for a feeling instead of choosing trust? The With Jesus Everyday video had hinted at this, urging viewers to pray through the silence, because that's where faith becomes a flame. Sarah resolved to embrace the third sign, but she needed guidance. After the vigil, she approached Maria, who was surrounded by parishioners offering thanks. "Maria," Sarah said, "how do you keep believing when nothing seems to change?" Maria's smile was warm but knowing. "It's not easy. I started small, praying a single verse every day, no matter how I felt. For me, it was John 16 verse 33, 'In this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world.' Say it, Sarah, even when it feels empty. It's like striking a match in the dark." That night, Sarah sat by her candle, her Bible open to John 16 verse 33. She spoke the verse aloud, her voice trembling. The silence that followed wasn't comforting, it was heavy, like a void. But she spoke it again, and again, each repetition a defiance of doubt. She thought of Pope Francis, enduring his own spiritual darkness, choosing faith over despair. If he could do it, so could she. The next morning, Sarah faced a crisis. Emily came home from school in tears, her backpack slung carelessly on the floor. "They're spreading lies about me," she sobbed. "Some kid said I started that fight last week." "I didn't, Mom, but no one believes me." Sarah's heart sank. She wanted to fix it, to march to the school and demand justice, but she remembered Maria's words. Instead, she sat with Emily, holding her hand, and said, "Let's pray." Together, they recited John 16 verse 33, Emily's voice shaky but resolute. For the first time, Sarah felt the third sign alive in her daughter, a flicker of faith amidst the silence of injustice. At the bakery, Sarah shared the incident with Rosa, who was furious on Emily's behalf. "Kids can be cruel," Rosa said, "but Carlos says Emily's one of the good ones. He's got her back." Sarah was touched, realizing her prayers for Carlos had built a bridge between their families. She invited Rosa to the next parish event, a youth prayer night, hoping to draw her closer to the signs. Rosa hesitated but agreed, saying, "For Carlos, I'll try anything." Over the next few days, Sarah's commitment to the third sign deepened. She prayed John 16 verse 33 each morning, pairing it with Psalm 91, her voice steadier with each passing day. She began to notice moments of grace, a teacher who listened to Emily's side of the story, a co-worker who covered a shift so Sarah could attend the youth night. Michael, too, seemed changed, joining her in prayer one evening, his hand resting on hers as they recited the Hail Mary. The silence wasn't gone, but it was no longer a void. It was a space where faith could grow. The youth prayer night was a turning point. The parish hall was filled with teenagers, parents, and volunteers, a mix of hope and uncertainty in the air. Emily, still shaken by the school rumors, sat with Carlos, who whispered encouragement. Rosa stood at the back, arms crossed but attentive. Father James led a reflection on Pope Francis's words, "Faith in silence is the master key that unlocks every grace." He invited everyone to write a prayer, a single sentence, to carry with them through doubt. Sarah wrote, "Lord, let my faith be a flame that lights my family's way." Emily's prayer was simpler, "God, help me be strong." As they shared their prayers, Sarah felt a connection, not just with her daughter but with the entire room. Rosa, to Sarah's surprise, wrote a prayer too, "If you're real, show me." It was a small step, but it filled Sarah with hope. The signs were spreading, touching lives beyond her own. On the final day of her 7-day challenge, Sarah opened the With Jesus Everyday channel and watched a new video, The Mission of the Signs. The narrator spoke of Pope Francis's call to use the signs not just for personal protection but for a greater purpose, to bring light to a darkened world. "Your faith," the voice said, "is a weapon against despair, a beacon for those who are lost. Share it, and heaven will multiply your blessings." Inspired, Sarah invited Rosa and Carlos to dinner, a simple meal of pasta and bread. Over the table, she shared the story of the signs, careful to focus on hope and action rather than doctrine. Rosa listened, her skepticism softening as Carlos nodded eagerly. "I want to pray like you," he said, clutching a rosary Sarah had given him. That night, Sarah tacked a comment on the video, "Francis, help me share your signs with others." It was a pledge, a step toward a mission she was only beginning to understand. As she lay in bed, Sarah felt the weight of the third sign. Faith wasn't just enduring silence, it was choosing to act, to trust, to shine. The vigil, Emily's courage, Rosa's tentative step toward prayer, these were proofs that her faith was alive. But a new challenge loomed. The video had spoken of a mission, a call to wield the signs in a world that needed them. Sarah sensed that her journey was about to expand, pulling her family and her community into a battle she couldn't yet see. Sarah Thompson stood in the crowded parish hall, her heart pounding as she gripped a small notebook filled with prayers and reflections. The room buzzed with anticipation for the parish's first Faith in Action night, a community initiative sparked by the recent prayer vigil. The three signs Pope Francis had revealed, a family that prays, health to fulfill a mission, and faith that endures silence, had transformed Sarah's life. Her nightly candlelit prayers, her sacrifices, and her persistent faith had strengthened her family and even touched Rosa, her skeptical co-worker. But tonight, Sarah sensed a shift. The signs weren't just for her, they were a call to a mission, a purpose that extended beyond her apartment's walls into the heart of her struggling Chicago neighborhood. The past week had tested Sarah's resolve. Emily's school troubles had eased, thanks to a supportive teacher and Carlos's loyalty, but whispers of new tensions lingered among the students. Michael's warehouse job was grueling, and though he joined Sarah in prayer, his exhaustion was palpable. The neighborhood, too, was on edge after a string of petty crimes, vandalism, thefts that left everyone wary. Yet, Sarah's faith, kindled through the silence, burned brighter. The With Jesus Everyday YouTube channel had become her compass, its latest video urging viewers to take the signs into the world, to be beacons of hope. Sarah felt ready, but the weight of this mission was daunting. Could she, an ordinary baker, carry heaven's light into a fractured community? The Faith in Action night began with Father James at the podium, his voice steady but urgent. Pope Francis teaches us that faith isn't private, he said. It's a mission to serve, to heal, to unite. In Buenos Aires, he walked among the poor, not just praying for them but listening, acting, building bridges. Tonight, we're called to do the same, right here in Chicago. He introduced a plan. Small groups would organize outreach efforts, food drives, youth mentorship, neighborhood cleanups, to address the community's needs. Sarah's pulse quickened. This was the mission the signs had prepared her for. As the crowd broke into groups, Sarah found herself with Maria, the youth outreach leader, and Rosa, who had reluctantly agreed to join after Carlos's insistence. Michael and Emily were there too, a rare family outing that filled Sarah with hope. Maria handed out flyers, her energy infectious. We're starting with a youth mentorship program, she said. The kids need role models, especially now. Who's in? Sarah hesitated, her mind flashing to her long bakery shifts and dwindling energy. But she thought of Pope Francis, who, despite his own physical limitations, never stopped serving. She raised her hand, and to her surprise, Michael did too. Rosa, arms crossed, muttered, I'm here for Carlos, but I don't know about mentoring. I'm no saint. Sarah smiled, remembering her own doubts. None of us are, she said. But we can try. Rosa shrugged, but her presence was a victory, a sign that the third sign, faith in silence, was reaching even those who didn't yet believe. The group's first task was to plan a mentorship kickoff, a Saturday event where teens could meet volunteers, share their struggles, and find support. Sarah suggested a prayer component, inspired by the With Jesus Everyday video's emphasis on intercession. We could start with a short prayer, she said, something simple, like a verse everyone can say. Maria nodded, proposing Psalm 23, *The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Sarah liked its universality, hoping it would resonate with Rosa and the non-Catholic teens. Over the next 2 days, Sarah threw herself into the preparations. She volunteered to bake cookies for the event, offering the hours of labor as a sacrifice for the neighborhood's youth. Each night, she lit her candle and prayed Psalm 23, dedicating it to the mentorship program. She also continued her morning recitation of John 16 verse 33, the verse that had echoed her faith in silence, *In this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. The prayers felt like seeds, planted in unseen soil, waiting to sprout. Michael, inspired by Sarah's commitment, took on a new role. He offered to lead a workshop at the kickoff, teaching basic job skills to older teens. I know what it's like to start over, he told Sarah, his voice tinged with resolve. Maybe I can help them. Sarah saw the second sign, health to fulfill a mission, and Michael's willingness to give, despite his own struggles. Emily, too, stepped up, designing posters for the event with Carlos. Their collaboration was a small miracle, a testament to the first sign, a family that prays. But challenges arose. On Wednesday, Sarah received a call from Emily's school. A new rumor had surfaced, accusing Emily of stealing a classmate's phone. The principal assured Sarah it was likely a misunderstanding, but Emily was devastated, refusing to leave her room. Sarah's first instinct was to panic, but she remembered Pope Francis's example, his calm in the face of accusations, his trust in God's plan. She sat with Emily, praying Psalm 23 together, and whispered, "This won't break us. We're stronger now." Emily nodded, her tears slowing, and Sarah felt the third sign, faith in silence, holding them steady. At the bakery, Rosa shared her own worries. Carlos was nervous about the mentorship event, afraid of being judged by older kids. "He's shy," Rosa said, "and I don't know how to help him." Sarah saw an opportunity to extend the signs. "Let's pray for him," she said, pulling Rosa into a quiet corner. They recited a Hail Mary, Rosa stumbling over the words but finishing with a determined nod. Sarah offered her anxiety for Carlos as a sacrifice, feeling the second sign alive in her act of service. The mentorship kickoff arrived, a chilly Saturday morning that drew a surprising crowd to the parish hall. Teens shuffled in, some with guarded expressions, others with cautious curiosity. Sarah's cookies were a hit, and Michael's workshop drew a small but engaged group. Emily and Carlos handed out schedules, their confidence growing with each interaction. Rosa, stationed at the welcome table, greeted families with a warmth that surprised Sarah. The prayer opened the event, Psalm 23 echoing through the room. Sarah noticed Rosa mouthing the words, a flicker of openness in her eyes. During a break, a teenage boy named Jamal approached Sarah. "I heard you're the prayer lady," he said, half joking. "My mom's sick, and I don't know what to do." Sarah's heart ached. She shared the story of Pope Francis praying for a dying man, his faith turning despair into hope. "Write a prayer," she told Jamal, handing him a slip of paper. "Just one sentence. Say it every day." Jamal scribbled, "God, heal my mom." Sarah promised to pray for his mother, adding the intention to her nightly candlelit ritual. The event wasn't perfect, some teens left early, and a few argued over trivial things, but it was a start. Father James closed with a reflection. Pope Francis says every act of service is a step toward heaven. You're building something sacred here. Sarah felt a surge of purpose. The signs had led her to this moment, to a mission that was bigger than her family's struggles. That night, Sarah watched a New with Jesus Everyday video, The Power of Mission. The narrator spoke of Pope Francis's belief that the signs are not just gifts but tools for transformation. Your mission, the voice said, is to carry these signs into the world, to heal what's broken. Share this message, and heaven will guide your steps. Sarah tacked a comment, Francis, help me be your light. She shared the video with Rosa and Maria, hoping to spread the signs further. As she prayed Psalm 23, Sarah felt the mission taking shape. The mentorship program was just the beginning. Her neighborhood needed more, hope, unity, faith. But a new fear surfaced. The signs had brought her this far, but what if the challenges grew? Could she lead others when her own faith was still fragile? The video had promised a final step, a way to unite the signs into a lasting legacy. Sarah sensed that the next chapter would test her like never before, pulling her deeper into a spiritual battle she was only beginning to understand. Sarah Thompson stood at the edge of the parish parking lot, her breath visible in the cold Chicago air. The lot was transformed into a beacon of hope, lit by strings of bulbs and warmed by the chatter of neighbors gathered for the parish's Light in the Darkness festival. It was a response to a recent tragedy, a shooting in their neighborhood that had left a young man injured and the community shaken. The three signs Pope Francis had revealed, a family that prays, health to fulfill a mission, and faith that endures silence, had guided Sarah through personal trials, from Michael's job loss to Emily's school struggles. Now, they were her strength as she faced a larger mission, to unite her community in the face of fear. Tonight, the signs would shine, not just for her family, but for all who needed hope. The past week had been a crucible. The shooting, though non-fatal, had exposed the neighborhood's fractures, fearful whispers, locked doors, and a growing distrust. Sarah's mentorship program, launched at the Faith in Action night, had gained traction, but the violence threatened to unravel it. Rosa, now a regular at parish events, was shaken, worrying about Carlos's safety. Michael, exhausted from his warehouse job, questioned whether their efforts mattered. Even Emily, who had found purpose in the program, retreated into silence, haunted by the news. Yet, Sarah's faith, forged in silence, held firm. The With Jesus Everyday YouTube channel had prepared her for this moment, its latest video declaring, "The signs are your light. Carry them into the darkness, and heaven will make you a beacon." The festival was Father James's vision, inspired by Pope Francis's call to build bridges in broken places. In Rome, James had said at Sunday Mass, Francis walks among the marginalized, showing that love conquers fear. Tonight, we'll do the same, praying, serving, standing together. The event included food stalls, music, a prayer vigil, and a youth showcase for the mentorship program. Sarah had volunteered to lead the vigil, a daunting task that felt like the culmination of her journey. She clutched her notebook, filled with prayers and quotes from Pope Francis, her anchor in the storm. As the festival began, Sarah scanned the crowd. Michael was at a food stall, serving chili with a rare smile. Emily and Carlos were setting up a display of youth art, their laughter a small victory. Rosa, now comfortable in the parish, handed out programs, her warmth drawing in strangers. Maria, the youth outreach leader, directed volunteers, her energy unwavering. The first sign, a family that prays, was alive in Sarah's loved ones, their presence a testament to Grandma Grace's enduring prayers. The mentorship showcase was a highlight. Teens shared stories of growth, their voices raw but hopeful. Jamal, the boy who had asked Sarah to pray for his mother, read a poem about resilience, ending with his prayer, "God, heal my mom." Sarah's heart swelled. She had added Jamal's mother to her nightly Hail Marys, offering her fatigue as a sacrifice. Later, Jamal whispered, "Mom's getting better. Thanks for praying." The second sign, health to fulfill a mission, shone in Sarah's small acts, their impact rippling beyond her family. But the prayer vigil was Sarah's true test. As dusk fell, the crowd gathered in a circle, holding candles that flickered like stars. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "Pope Francis teaches us that faith in silence is our greatest strength," she said. "When fear surrounds us, when God seems quiet, we choose to pray, to love, to hope. Tonight, we're lighting this darkness together." She led the group in Psalm 23, the verse that had united the mentorship program, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." The words rose, a chorus of defiance against despair. Rosa, standing beside Sarah, joined in, her voice soft but steady. It was a milestone. Rosa had written her first prayer at the youth night, and now she was praying publicly. After the psalm, Sarah invited everyone to share a one-sentence prayer. Michael, to her surprise, spoke, "God, give us strength to rebuild." Emily's prayer was bold, "Lord, keep our neighborhood safe." Rosa's was simple, "Help me trust you." The third sign, faith that endures silence, was alive in each voice, a flame that no darkness could extinguish. The vigil ended with a moment of silence, the candles casting a glow that felt sacred. Sarah thought of Pope Francis, who had faced violence in Argentina yet never stopped serving. His words, quoted in a notebook, echoed, "Faith is not a feeling, it's a choice to act." She felt the signs converging, not just shielding her family but igniting a mission to heal her community. The festival wasn't without challenges. A group of teens argued near the art display, their voices sharp with old grudges. Sarah intervened, drawing on her mentorship experience, and invited them to join the vigil. Two stayed, their candles joining the circle. A skeptical neighbor questioned the event's purpose, saying, "This won't stop the violence." Sarah responded with a story from the With Jesus Everyday channel about Pope Francis visiting a prison, his presence softening hardened hearts. "It starts with us," she said. The neighbor nodded, unconvinced but thoughtful. As the night wound down, Father James took the stage. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Pope Francis reminds us that every step toward love is a victory. Keep praying, keep serving, keep shining." He announced a new initiative, a With Jesus Everyday Community Challenge, inspired by the channel. For 30 days, participants would commit to 3 acts: praying for a neighbor, offering a daily sacrifice, and sharing a story of hope. Sarah felt a surge of purpose. This was the legacy of the signs, a way to sustain the light. At home, Sarah gathered her family around the kitchen table, the candle burning brightly. She shared the challenge, and Michael, usually reserved, agreed to join. "I've seen what your prayers do," he said, squeezing her hand. Emily signed up, eager to involve Carlos and her friends. Rosa, who had stayed for coffee, hesitated but said, "I'm in," for Carlos. Sarah opened her phone and subscribed to the With Jesus Everyday channel, clicking the bell icon to never miss a video. She typed a final comment: "Francis, thank you for making me a light." The challenge began the next day. Sarah prayed for the injured young man, offering her morning commute as a sacrifice. Michael visited a jobless neighbor, sharing his own story of starting over. Emily organized a school prayer group, her confidence a far cry from her earlier struggles. Rosa, true to her word, prayed for Carlos's safety, her skepticism giving way to curiosity. The neighborhood wasn't transformed overnight, tensions lingered, and fear persisted, but small changes emerged. A local shop donated to the mentorship program, inspired by the festival. The injured man's family attended Mass, seeking support. Sarah's nightly ritual evolved. She prayed Psalm 23, John 16 verse 33, and a Hail Mary, each verse a thread in a tapestry of faith. Grandma Grace's journal, now a family treasure, sat open, its prayers echoing in their lives. Sarah felt the signs as more than gifts, they were tools, weapons, lights. The first sign had rebuilt her family, the second had fueled her service, and the third had taught her to trust. Together, they had led her to a mission that was now the community's. On the 30th day of the challenge, Sarah stood in the parish hall for a celebration of the With Jesus Everyday initiative. The room was filled with familiar faces: Maria, Rosa, Jamal, and dozens of neighbors. Father James played a video from the channel, its message clear: the signs are yours to carry. Share them, and heaven will multiply your light. Sarah shared her story, from her first candlelit prayer to the festival's vigil, crediting Pope Francis's teachings. Rosa spoke too, admitting, "I didn't believe at first, but something's changed. I'm not alone anymore." The event ended with a call to action. Father James urged everyone to subscribe to With Jesus Every Day and click the bell for updates. "This channel," he said, "is a guide for our journey. Don't miss the next message, it could be the one you need." Sarah felt a pang of gratitude. The channel had been her lifeline, and now it was her community's. She opened her phone, ensuring her subscription was active, and shared the link with her sister, Laura, hoping to mend their rift. As Sarah blew out her candle that night, she whispered, "Francis, thank you for the light." The signs had transformed her, from a woman lost in despair to a beacon of hope. Her family was stronger, her community was healing, and her faith was unshakable. The journey wasn't over, challenges would come, but the signs would endure. She closed her eyes, feeling heaven's presence, ready for whatever mission lay ahead. Sarah's story is yours too. The signs are waiting, will you carry them? Subscribe to With Jesus Every Day and click the bell to join us. Together, we'll light the darkness, one prayer at a time.